What's up, fish tank people? This is Brad coming at you with another video from my fish room. This video is going to concentrate on breeding Apistogrammas and what to do with fry. This is a 10-gallon aquarium. The pH is 6.3, the hardness is very soft, and the temperature is 76 degrees. The hardness is, the GH and the KH are like 0, so this water is really acidic and soft. And this is straight from the tap. This is the water that I have available to me, and it basically is very well suited to Apistogrammas. This fry is approximately 3 weeks old, and they're doing very, very well. Right now I'm feeding them microworms, and they're loving it. They're also eating algae that's in the tank, and this tank is well cycled. You wouldn't want to put them in a brand new aquarium and expect the fry to be able to have much to eat unless you're providing microworms. Basically, if you want to get them to breed, what you need to do is get a nice pair, and then basically place them in a 10-gallon. And I like small tanks for breeding Apistogrammas. I find I've had more success with 10 gallons and 5 gallons. And if you want them to breed, you can sometimes add an extra female to the pair and have a trio, or you could even put a non-dominant male in there as well, and if he gets chewed up you could remove him. Another technique that some people use would be basically to take a mirror and place it either inside the aquarium or tape it to the outside, and then of course that works very well as long as you remove the mirror. Just place it there for an hour, remove it, bring it back in a few hours later. I've never had to do that. Basically what I do is I just place the pair in the tank, let them get to know each other, watch them very carefully to make sure that they are compatible, and then I start lowering my water level. And I lower the water level probably about 20% at a time till I get it down to about 40% remaining. And I use floating plants, and I basically cover the top surface of the water with floating plants, and as that water level decreases, it's basically simulating the rainy or the dry season in South America. Okay, so basically that induces the breeding action. I find that works very, very well, and I bet you could even do it with an aquarium that has water, a pH of even 7 would even work, as long as you're lowering that water level and have lots and lots of cover with those floating plants. Once they do breed, it's the first sign of fry, I remove the male. I do this because, for two reasons. One of which is that the male may eat the fry, or second is that the female may get, anxious and, eat the fry herself. I guess another reason would be too that, I find that the female will often keep the male situated in one corner, like chase the male and not allow him to move out of one space. So that's not good for the male, and it's it creates a bit of stress for the female, and you don't want her to get upset and eat the fry or get nervous. So this is Apistogramma norberti. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. After I've been feeding them microworms for a while, and they get a little bit of size, then I'll start holding off on feeding them microworms and just add a bit of flake here and there, just to kind of slowly get them into eating flake food, because microworms, they're kind of a pain in the ass in some aspects. You can imagine, basically, they can crash, or they can, be a target for fruit flies and all this kind of stuff. Although I've never really experienced the fruit flies, and I don't ever let my microworms get to that point where they'll crash. I just keep adding more oatmeal and more yeast and just keep them going, and then once that tub is full I move on to another tub and start the process again. And I also keep about 3 tubs going at one time, just so that I always have a supply of microworms. And unlike a lot of people, I don't have time to be feeding fish like 5-6 times, like fry 5-6 times a day. In this busy time, like who's got time to do that? What I usually do is microworms will live in the water for might be, I'm not 100% sure, but they can live, I think, somewhere around 2 days in the aquarium. Just on the substrate. So I mean, once they're in the tank, there's always going to be a supply of live food. Basically, they're nematodes, so they can survive for a while. So basically, I feed as much as I can. Usually what happens is they don't get their first feeding until midday, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Other times they'll get it in the morning. I try to do it in the morning, but I'm a busy guy and I got a busy job, and by the time I get home 3:30, 4 o'clock, first thing I do is hit this fish room and feed those fry. And I mean, they do quite well. I'm going to show you some more that are quite a bit older than these, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But so feedings as much as you can, but at the same time, they will survive if you've got a tank that's aged and there's algae for them to pick at as well. Okay, and if there's a bit of flakes down there and some dead leaves, they'll eat that too. Now I'm going to switch over. Well, I guess I can talk about the females. The female right here, you can see she's a brightly colored yellow. Her fins have a black stripe on the bottom and on the top and the dorsal, and her black line going horizontal to her body there is becomes quite pronounced, and this is the way they look when they start to breed. And once they have their fry and they're protecting their fry, they keep those breeding colors. Otherwise, they're kind of a drab, dull color. But you can see her bottom fins there, they're quite black and yellow. That's a sure sign that you've got a female. Males are way more colorful, and they're also quite a bit larger. Okay, this is a beautiful female. What's funny too is that they breed at a very young age, because I think they don't have a very long lifespan, maybe a couple years, 3 years or something. So I mean, they start breeding pretty well, about an inch. So what I do with the male is I usually stick them in a breeding box onto one of my other aquariums, and I just feed them and let them grow, and they do quite well. And then when I'm ready to breed again, I'll bring them back to the tank. I always remove the male. Now the female, I will remove her once the fry basically start eating flake food. That's about the point I remove them. I guess because it just makes them feel safe having their mom around, I guess. And she is a very good parent, and she'll herd them all into the cave. And brings me to another topic when talking about caves. You can use anything for apistogrammas. I use flower pots like this. I just break them and stick them in the sand like that, and that's where she bred. I've also had them breed in this castle thingy right here, and they went in there and bred in there another time ago. And but anyway, let's move on and go and look at the other aquarium. My tanks are on the ground here, or on the floor, I mean. And they will be moving to a rack for my 10 gallons, which I'm going to build probably today, actually. And anyway, this is macmasteri, Apistogramma macmasteri, and these guys here are a few months old now. And this is a 5 gallon. They're still pretty small, and they are eating some flake food, and I'm supplementing them with the microworms. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to place the camera right here. Oh, see this eBay filter, the sponge filter? Apistogrammas love hiding in there, the little ones. Absolutely love it. Okay. So at one point this tank did have floating plants. The whole top was covered. I did the same thing. I drained down the water until there was probably about 40% left. And then once once they were, you know, doing well, and I just got to a point where I decided I would remove all the floating plants, and I just threw a little bit of Java fern in there and let it float. And basically the reason why is because it makes the tank so much easier to clean. You don't have to worry about sucking up a fry that all of a sudden comes out of the plant life. And you know, it keeps the tank just a bit cleaner. And if they're eating flakes and they're eating microworms, then they really don't need those little bits of algae that's growing on the plants to the same extent that those other guys, the birdi, would need. So this is just basically a fluoride mixed substrate, and these fish were bred in here. The tank is also the same, 76 degrees, and some people may feel that's a bit cool, but I mean, just look, they're doing very well. So the female is here somewhere. I think she's over behind that filter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some microworms in there and see if I can get these fish to make an appearance for you. So this is what my microworm culture looks like. You can see it's just some oatmeal with water mix and then yeast on top of that. And you can even see on the camera, you see all the little microworms moving about. Right? You can see almost like almost a sheen, like a light or something, and that's the worms. So what you do is basically you know, take your finger, just rub it around like that. Try not to get any oatmeal on there, and then I won't be able to see it on the camera, I guess. Probably can. And then you just lay your finger in there and swish it around to get the worms off your finger. I always wash my hands after because I'm an operating room nurse. I'm kind of paranoid, almost germaphobe. But so I'm gonna wash my hands after. But you can see. Let's get rid of some of these. I just did a water change on this tank, preparation for this video, and you can see there's lots of bubbles in there now. They'll start to come out and eat now. They're absolutely a stunning fish. Now, I really should have removed the female. I have not yet. Basically because I've been so busy I haven't had a chance to build my little rack for my 10 gallons. I'm going to stack them up one on top of the other, of course, and I'm going to you know, breed these guys again. I really want to breed them again. I have a 6-foot 35 gallon. Can you imagine? And I can't wait to do a video on that tank. It's a homemade tank that I bought from another fish hobbyist, and I'm going to be placing probably all of my fry in that tank and just let them grow out, and then I'll move them to something even bigger. My dream is to have a very heavily planted tank and have lots and lots of Apistogramma. I know you can't really have too many males in the tank, but I can have lots of females, and if you've got lots of space you should be able to get away with a number of pairs. So I know somebody once had a 50 gallon who had a shitload of Apistogrammas in there, and they did really well. Really, really well. That's the female right there. And this is the male. He don't like this camera. You would not believe how much that fish has grown since it's been in that little breeder box. I've been feeding them bloodworms and brine shrimp and all frozen, and I've been feeding them New Life Spectrum. This is actually Thera A in this. It's usually what I feed him. They're a bit of a bigger pellet for him, but he has no trouble with those. Isn't that cool? If you want to do it, it's quite easy. Just follow the simple instructions I've given you. Let me just see, make sure I've covered everything that I wanted to. If you have a problem with getting, you know, with higher pH and harder water, and this is a dream of yours as well, then basically what you need to do to lower the pH is just pick up some almond leaves off of eBay. Usually you can get 20 for a pretty decent price. I live in a place where there's lots of alders, which is like a nuisance, you know, bush, tree, whatever you want to call it here in Newfoundland. And I just take the cones off there, and I throw a handful of those in there if you desire. I do it too, just because that's their natural environment, and I had that going on in another tank that I have. But you don't have to, and there's none in this one. But in order to lower pH, I guess you would. Another thing too is the substrate too. You know, getting soil would even help you lower your pH, and heavily planting your tank also helps, as well as having a lot of peat on the go, which would be, you know, peat balls in your filter, or, you know, even peat in your substrate as long as it's buried. But I think some of the nursery sell peat balls, which aren't going to be a mess, so you could even just put them and lay them in there. But I guess that's another video in itself. Anyway, that's all I got to say. If anybody wanted to make some comments, feel free. You know, and if you got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. I'm sure there's something that I'm forgetting to say. I usually do and then regret it later. But anyhow,